Welcome to New Testament Greek Exegesis 1, Lesson 6, Overview of Verbs. Now, the verb is the core of the Greek sentence, so it's very, very important. The Greek verb encodes more information than the English verb does. And the Greek verb encodes person, number, tense, voice, mood, and the root idea. Now, the first aspect of the verb is person. One of the things you need to be aware of is the editorial we. Editorial we is employed primarily in epistles and refers only to the author. Elabomen karin kai apostolain. We have received grace and apostleship, probably referring only to Paul, the author. There's also the exclusive we, where both the author and the co-workers are included, but the audience is excluded. Theu gar esmen sunergoi, theu koidame este. For we are God's co-workers, you are God's building. So we, Paul and his co-workers, are distinguished from the readers. Then there's the inclusive we, where both the authors, and the audience are included. Polygar tiamen hapantes, for we all stumble in many ways. Both the authors and the readers are included. The second aspect of the verb is number. And one of the things that you need to be aware of is that often a neuter plural subject can take a singular verb. For example, the animals run, ta zoa treke. So ta zoa is plural, treke is singular. Palate tarata kai semea diaton apostolon agenata. Many wonders and signs were being performed by the apostles. So terata and semea are both plural, yet agenata is singular. Sometimes you'll get a compound subject where at least one is singular and the other together make a plural. Is often found with a singular verb. Exelthen ha Jesus kai ho mathetai autu. Jesus and his disciples went on. So ha Jesus is singular, ha Jesus exelthen, Jesus went out, also his disciples went out. So oftentimes the singular verb will link with the singular subject, even though there is another compound subject along with it. Thirdly is voice. Active voice. The simple active voice is the subject is directly involved in performing the action of the verb. Agapisen hatheas ton kosmon. God loved the world. Active voice. There's also causative action, active, where the subject is the cause behind the action of the verb. Ton helion autu anatele. So God causes his sun to shine. So the sun shines, but it is God who's causing the sun to shine. Active voice can also be reflective, where the subject performs the action back on itself, and that'll be the active voice plus a reflexive pronoun. Gymnadze de saoton pros eusebeon. Train yourself in godliness. The middle voice is a little more complex. English middle voice is a little different than the Greek middle voice, and we'll probably look at middle voice more in detail later. But one of the main uses of the middle voice is the reflexive middle. The subject of the verb performs the action to itself. Judas apelthon apagxata. So Judas went out and hanged himself. Thirdly, there's the passive voice. Simple passive is where the subject receives the action of the verb. Dikaiasune gartheu en auto apocalyptitai, for in it the righteousness of God is revealed. And oftentimes, passive voice is used either to leave out the agent or to thematize the direct object by making it the subject. There's also permissive passive voice, where the subject gives consent or permission regarding the action of the verb. Pleiruste and pneumati, be filled with the Spirit. In other words, let yourself be filled with the Spirit. Verbs also have mood. The mood of a verb indicates the author's attitude toward an event, either its actuality or its potentiality. So what is the author's attitude toward the action of the verb? And Greek has 4 moods: indicative, subjunctive, optative, and imperative. Of course, indicative is something is asserted. Subjunctive, something is probable. Optative, something is possible. Imperative, something is intended. Now, in the indicative mood, the most common is the declarative indicative. It's an unqualified assertion or statement. Enarche ein halagos. In the beginning was the word. You can also have an interrogative indicative mood, where a question is asked. Sutis e, who are you? There's also a conditional indicative, where in the protasis, the if clause of a first-class conditional sentence, the indicative is used. Eun sune gerthete tu Christo ta anozete. So if you have been raised with Christ, seek what is above. You also have a conditional indicative where the protasis if clause of a second-class conditional. Agar epistuete Mose, epistuete on emoi. For if you believe Moses, then you would believe me. There's a cohortative indicative, where a future indicative that is used as a command. Apostasis ton plesion su, you shall love your neighbor. So the future indicative is used as a cohortative, as a command. Agapeses, you shall love, you will love your neighbor. You must love your neighbor. And finally, there's a potential indicative, used with verbs of obligation, wish, or desire, and then followed by a complementary infinitive. Bulumai un neoteras gamein. I want younger women to marry. So bulumai, I want, is in the indicative mood, but it's expressing an obligation. Gamein, in the infinitive, then completes the idea, I want to marry. Therefore, I want young women to marry. It's something that must happen. It's a form of a command, but the indicative mood is used. Now, the subjunctive mood is often used for purpose, along with the conjunctions hina or hapos. Elphen hina martyrese peritu photos. So John the Baptist came, hina, in order to, martyrese, in order to testify about the light. So hina plus martyrese, in order to testify. The subject can also be a subjunctive of result along with hina or hapos as well. Again, context is going to determine that tis himarten hutas e hoigane satu hina tuflas genethe, who sinned, this man or his parents, so that as a result he was born blind. So hina here is for result. So genethe, was born, hina genethe, that he was born tuflos, he was born blind. The subjunctive mood is also used in conditional sentences for third-class conditional, aeon or aeon me, aeon tis ton iman logon terese, if anyone keeps my word. The subjunctive is also used in the protasis of a third-class conditional sentence, aeon me tis genethe anothen, u dunata idein tain basilean tu theou, unless someone is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of heaven. So aeon me is often used as an equivalent of unless. So if not someone is born, if someone is not born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. Or we would express that in English, unless someone is born again. The subjunctive mood can also be used as an indefinite relative clause. Hostis, often with on or aeon, or hosteon. Hos on epikalesitai ta anaman kuriou sothesetai. Whoever calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. So hasan functions as a relative clause, as an indefinite relative clause. Whoever. Also, subjunctive can be an indefinite temporal clause, often with the conjunctions hatan, heos, akri, and mechri. Hatan gar legetis, egomenemi palu. For whenever someone says, I am with Paul, hatan gar lege, whenever someone says. A deliberative subjunction asks a real or a rhetorical question. Epimenomen te hamartia, hine charis pleonase. Should we continue in sin in order that grace may multiply? So we're deliberating. Shall we do that? Should we do that? Emphatic negation is expressed by the double negative ume, and it strongly denies something will ever happen. Ume eselthete estein beselean tu uranu. You will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Absolutely never enter the kingdom of heaven. Ume se ano ud ume se eg katalipo. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Ume se ano, I will never leave you. Ume se eg katalipo, I will never forsake you. The subjunctive is also used in prohibitory clauses. It's used when the command is negated with me and the aorist tense is used. Afete ta paidia erkestai pros me kai me koluete auta. Let the children come to me and do not hinder them. Apatu irantas su tahamatian kaitan kitona me koluses. If anyone asks for your coat, do not withhold your shirt either. Me namisete hati elthon katalusai tanama etus prophetas. Do not think I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. Now, there's also the optative mood, which is voluntative, expresses a prayer, benediction, or blessing, or wish. Charisumin kairene pleithunethe. May grace and peace be multiplied to you. So it's voluntative. It's a wish. Also, negatively can be used to express abhorrence. And me genoita is used 14 times by Paul. Hamartesumen hati uk esmen hupanamo ala hupa karen. Me genoita. Should we sin because we're not under law but under grace? May it never be. There's also a potential optative, which involves a fourth-class conditional clause of possible fulfillment, ege pascoite diadekaiosune bakarioi. Even if you should suffer for righteousness, you are blessed. So it's a potential involved. And finally, there's the imperative mood. The imperative mood occurs mainly in two tenses, the present and the aorist, though there are several others. There are only two perfect imperatives in the New Testament. There are no first-person imperatives because it is not normal to command yourself to do something. In fact, they'll use the subjunctive for that. The imperative mood is used mainly for a command, an exhortation or a charge. Pantate kairete, rejoice always. A negative command that forbids an action is a prohibition. So the imperative mood is used with may to express prohibition. Me agapate tan kosman, to not love the world. The imperative mood can also express a request. So a command that is given to a superior is thus weakened to a request or entreaty. Ete dune ba ethesan humen. But if you can do anything, help us. The imperative mood also expresses permission, used to convey permission, allowance, or toleration. Eha apistos charidzetai, charidzesthe. If the unbeliever leaves, charidzesthe, let him leave. So permission, give him permission to leave. The imperative mood is also used conditionally, just like the subjunctive. It can be used to state a condition. Erku ka ide, come and see. In other words, if you come, you will see. And finally, the imperative mood is used in greetings, often to express, often in a stereotyped expression, Kaire Rabbi, greetings, Rabbi.